On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area and Spokane City Cable 5, welcome to our 2019 General Election Candidate Forum featuring candidates for City Council, District 1, Position 1 for the City of Spokane. We also welcome KHQ TV, who is live streaming this event. I am Ann Murphy, your moderator, and Sally Phillips of the League is our timer. The general election is Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. In this forum, the candidates will have an opportunity to present themselves to you, the voters, and the voters will have an opportunity to learn more about each candidate before they cast their ballots. The questions I will be asking have been formulated by the League's Voter Service Committee. The candidates are seated in alphabetical order, and the first speaker will rotate with each question. Candidates will have up to 1 minute to answer our initial question and then up to 90 seconds to answer subsequent questions, with additional time for rebuttal or a follow-up question as appropriate. Each candidate will have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement. I will ask as many questions as time allows. Our timer will hold up a yellow card when the speaker has 15 seconds remaining and a red card when time is up. Now, before we proceed, a reminder about voting. You must be registered in order to vote. You can register online by October 28th, 2019, up to 8 days prior to Election Day. Any mail-in or paper forms must be received in the elections office by October 28th. And new this year is same-day voter registration. During the 8 days prior to Election Day, there will be 2 places where you may register in person. The Spokane County Elections Office at 1033 West Gardner in Spokane, or Center Place, 2426 North Discovery Place in Spokane Valley. Hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4, and then 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. When you register, you will be provided a ballot for voting. Other new registration changes are automatic voter registration when eligible citizens interact with state agencies, and then pre-registration that allows 16, 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote, and then they will be registered when they turn 18. Registered voters will receive their mail-in ballots about 3 weeks prior to Election Day. Return ballots must be postmarked, and make sure that it will be postmarked in time, or deposited in conveniently located ballot boxes no later than 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 5th. Ballots can be dropped off on Election Day at one of the voter service centers. For locations of ballot boxes or voter service centers, or information on accessible voting units, or other questions you may have about casting your ballot, contact the Spokane County Elections Office, 477-2320. Contact for information for the candidates, as well as voter guides, can also be found at the Spokane County Elections Office. Additional election information can be found at the state website, votewa.gov, and on the League of Women Voters online voter guide site, vote411.org. And now we meet the candidates for City Council District 1, Position 1. This is a nonpartisan race, and only the voters in the city of Spokane will be, District 1 will vote. That district is generally the northeast portion of the city, generally north of I-90 and east of Division. Joining us today are Tim Benn and Michael Cathcart. Welcome. Candidates, you will have up to 1 minute to answer our first question, and we'll begin with Mr. Benn on that question. What do you consider are the most important duties of a city council member, and what specific training, experience, and skills do you have that have prepared you for these responsibilities? You have 1 minute, Mr. Benn.
Yeah, thank you for putting on the debate, League of Women Voters, or the forum. I think the most important thing is representing the citizens of the district, focusing on their issues, fielding their complaints, showing up to their home or business when they have issues, and helping them navigate the city and look at the city's ordinances and operations to make sure that you serve the citizens well. And if there's need for change, make the change so you can accommodate what the citizens need to accomplish.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart?
Yeah, and thank you to the League for hosting this forum, just to start off. I really think the most important role for the city council as a whole is to ensure a high quality of life. And we do that by investing in public safety, our roads, our infrastructure, setting a budget that's fiscally responsible, and planning carefully for future growth. I think those are kind of the keys for the city council. But in this position specifically, I think the role really is to fight for Northeast Spokane. We have a culture, I think, in City Hall that doesn't necessarily see Northeast Spokane in the same light as our other two council districts. And so I think the role of the city council member from Northeast Spokane is to fight like hell for the district, for the people, and make sure that we are getting the investments and the resources that we really require in District 1. That's really important. And so that's something that I fully intend to fight for.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Now we'll move into some other questions, and we'll take up to 90 seconds for these. Our first question expands on where you have started, Mr. Cathcart. To what extent have each of you taken actions to familiarize yourself with the specific issues important to the residents in your district? And based on these actions, what are the 3 most important issues in your district, and what specific steps will you take to address them?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, I mean,
It's a lot.
where do you start? Doorbelling and more doorbelling would be a very big part of that. Talking to as many citizens that live in the neighborhoods in the district. Attending as many neighborhood council meetings as I can, as many community gatherings, meeting with our law enforcement officers, meeting with city administration officials, just making sure that I understand kind of what the needs of the city as a whole are, but specifically the needs of the constituents in Northeast Spokane. And it's very easily, I hear the same 3. There's often a 4th that's added on this from most of the doors that I visit, most of the people I talk to, and that is public safety, it's homelessness, and it's our roads and infrastructure. And sometimes housing is a 4th one that's included as I'm going door to door. So those are the big ones that folks are talking about, they're really concerned about, and especially in our part of town, they want to make sure the resources are there to actually deploy those officers, to actually fix our roads, to actually do something about some of the illegal camping that's taking place, to make sure that we're supporting those who are experiencing homelessness, but doing it in a way that's keeping our community safe.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ben.
That was a mouthful of a question. Can you repeat it?
I
I want to make
sure
sure I
can.
answer every aspect
So
there.
to what extent have you taken actions to familiarize yourself with the issues important to the residents in your district? And then based on those actions, what are the 3 most important issues in your district, and what specific steps will you take to address them?
Well, I've lived in the district pretty much my whole adult life. My wife and I got married in the district. We raised our children there. We've served hundreds of families and children with our child care business over the last 2 decades when we bought our property there. And so we're familiar with the issues and the people already, just being longtime residents, and I hear a lot of the same things that he addressed there. But really, the homeless issue is a drug issue as far as we can see in our district. And in my police ride-along, that was a begging issue, is how do we deal with the drugs that are on the streets? I took an overnight trip with the officer, talked to citizens while we were on police calls, and that is their main concern, is public safety, property crime, and the drug abuse. And of course, the condition of our streets in the city of Spokane, we have 60 miles of unimproved roads. I happen to have a dirt road next to my house, so the majority of those are in Northeast Spokane.
Okay, thank you. Let's go 30 more seconds if you have anything more to say or rebut here, Mr. Cathcart.
No, I think it's exactly what I said, and the way we get there is we take a chisel to the budget. I mean, we take a scalpel. We make sure that we are fixing we're removing every bit of waste from that budget and making sure that we are reprioritizing those resources to law enforcement. We're adding more accountability into the programs that we have for supporting homelessness. And quite frankly, we need a 20-year residential street maintenance program. And that's a big one because our residential streets are falling apart. Our sidewalks are falling apart. And we got to do something about that right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ben.
Well, I think there's money that's in the budget that's getting left on the table when it comes to Northeast Spokane. In the 2019 approved projects for the traffic calming, which would be signals, which I fought for, school safety lights for several years. We finally got them installed at Cooper Elementary, and there's money left on the table. 2019, there was $450,000 allotted to the Northwest District, $565,000 to the South Hill, and only $45,000 allotted to Northeast Spokane. So we need to make sure that we're getting the funding that we're putting in back out and into projects.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to go into, you both brought up the point about the homeless and housing, and related to all of this is the fact that we have it's reported that Spokane has approximately 350 what are known as zombie houses spread throughout the city. These houses greatly impact the quality of life in our neighborhoods. How prevalent is this problem in your district, and are existing ordinances adequate to address it? If not, what changes are needed? What procedural steps could be improved upon? And we'll start with you, Mr. Ben.
Yeah, I think that a lot of houses, actually, there's in the Northeast District, Chief Gary Park area especially, we're seeing a lot of houses being rehabilitated, which is a positive sign. I think we need to be really active with our code enforcement as far as are those properties just being used by large out-of-state banks as tax write-offs? We need to get them back into use so families can live in them. We have a shortage of housing, so we definitely need to encourage the rehabilitation. And currently, our city has less code enforcement per capita than most cities our size. And so I think we need to look at addressing how we're going to move those houses back into use, and how are we going to make them affordable. So I know that we have a number of programs SNAP has worked on rehabilitation. We need to make sure we continue those efforts and help the small contractors get a leg up, because right now the big developers are the ones that are getting the incentives.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, you know, in 2018, the Washington State Legislature passed HB 2057, which basically gave the city the ability to start taking care of these zombie home properties. And as I'm out talking to neighbors and doorbelling, I'm seeing a lot of these zombie homes that are not being taken care of, and that's the fault of code enforcement. And I think we need to make sure that we are either investing in or passing policies that is encouraging our code enforcement officials to actually go out and deal with these problem homes, because they're a blight on the community. They create a safety hazard. One that I visited a couple of weeks ago was in the exact same shape, although a little worse off now, about 60 days after I visited it the first time. And come to find out that there had been some people camping in the basement. They broke in the back door, but nobody was doing anything. And folks had reported it to the city, but there had been zero response. And so we just need to make sure that we are actually complying with the laws that are on the books, following through on those things. And when we've got state laws that back up the ability to do some of the things that we need to do, that we're taking full advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. One more question related to our housing. There's been a lot of discussion about affordable housing in our community, and much of it is centered on incentives to increase the supply of housing and access to it by low-income individuals and families. Can you address the other side of the equation, i.e., are there barriers, regulatory or otherwise, that exist in Spokane that are impacting this development of more affordable housing units? And as a city council member, what specific steps would you support to address any of these issues? Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, you know, we have an urban comprehensive plan, but we have a suburban code, and that needs to change. We need to make it easier to build more density around our centers and corridors, more density downtown. We have a lot of opportunities for more residential, more mixed use. You know, we can do some really interesting things with new types of products, townhomes, single families, duplexes, triplexes. But the issue is we have, I think, a current council that isn't so in favor of growth, and so it's very limited as to where you can build and how you can build, and there's just too many restrictions that we have to get past. I really want to champion a small lot ordinance to allow us to build on smaller footprints. We're going to have to build taller in certain areas of town, I think, because ultimately we need about 7,000 to 10,000 more units very quickly. And so we are going to have to make sure that the investments are being made to allow that to take place. And in some parts of the town of the city, we need to extend utilities. We need to look at some things like that. And so we're going to have to investigate more options as to where you can build around the city.
Okay, Mr. Ben.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I see many vacant lots around the city that could have homes on them and families living in them. And the reason why they're not being developed is our codes are too strict. I know a plumber who was working on the north side of Spokane right at the city-county line. The homes were built by the same developer, had a common plumbing problem, but the cost in one home was hundreds more dollars than the other home because we're just charging too much for many of the permitting and the processes. We need to clean them up, make them easier, especially for the small contractor. The larger developers looking for larger lot sizes, mostly out in the county. I think to do the infill that we want to see happen in the city and have building that matches the neighborhoods where there are vacant lots, whether they're a house that burned down years ago or whether it was never developed, we need to incentivize those smaller builders that will build 1 or 2 homes in those locations. And the other issue we have is condominiums. Some folks don't want a home to themselves, single family residence, but would like to be an owner and have the pride in ownership. And we need to ask the state to change the condominium code so they can make it easier for local developers.
Okay, thank you. Property crime continues to plague many Spokane neighborhoods. Please discuss the extent of property crime and its impacts in your district. What specific actions would you as a council member take to help address the property crime problem? And Mr. Ben, we'll start with you. This will be 90 seconds.
Well, in many cases, we can link property crime directly to the drug epidemic that we're seeing. People are stealing to get their drugs. I think that we need to embolden our citizens to protect their property and give them more tools to do so. We need to look at more of the community policing model and work with neighborhoods and block watch and get with our neighborhood resource officers. Another thing I think we need to do is currently in the ride along, I learned from law enforcement that we are taking a citywide approach north of the river and south of the river for the nighttime shifts. The NROs do daytime shifts, but at night is where we have the car prowlers. We need to go back to where they're working a beat so that the people in the community know who their officer is. They know that they're going to be around the corner, and the people that are terrorizing those communities with property crimes will also know that that officer is somewhere in the neighborhood around the corner. So I think if we do that, we will deter the behavior, but I think we need to go after the drug dealers and the flow of drugs into our city that is getting people into these lifestyles where they are stealing to feed their habits.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing we have to do is we have to invest in 50 new officers. We do not have enough police officers to do what we need to do. And the neighborhood policing model that Tim just referenced has been the idea that I've been championing since the beginning of this campaign. And I think the importance of that is it enables us to get our officers on the streets, walking through the alleyways, getting to know the neighbors, the employers. They can identify anybody and anything that's out of place. And I think people just feel safer. They feel like if they call the police, there's a presence and somebody can actually respond to that call. The second thing, and specifically to your question about property crime, there's a few things we can do quite easily, actually. One is just improve lighting in our neighborhoods. The lighting is terrible in some of these neighborhoods. If you go to Minnehaha, there's one street that's a newer street and there's lighting all over the place. It's nice and lit up. You go one block over and it's an older street and it's pitch black at night. You can't see anything. And the neighbors are really frustrated about that. And so we need to start addressing those types of issues. And we also need to do an emphasis on reporting crime. I think there's been a lot of folks who've just simply stopped reporting. And if we would emphasize that, I think we'd see our crime rates skyrocket.
Okay,
I'd like to add to that if I could.
Yeah, we can do a rebuttal here, you two. 30 seconds, Mr. Ben.
Yeah, I think we do need to get people reporting the crime, but they've given up unless it's something they're going to file on an insurance claim because we don't have any enforcement and we don't have any investigation. And we need to go back to the model we had that was similar to ROTC, where we had students working towards becoming law enforcement, doing property crime investigation and getting the training working with the public. And if we can go back to do that, then we'll have the officers in the chute and ready to go through the academy. And it takes about a year to get an officer on the street. And that's why I supported the public safety levies, because I know it's harder and harder to find officers willing to do the difficult job they do. And I think we need to create a pipeline to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, the other thing I think we really have to focus on are these chronic nuisance homes. And, we've got laws on the books that allow the city to kind of declare an emergency and take action much quicker than they are doing now. And a lot of this goes back to law enforcement having the resources to watch these homes and identify what activities are taking place. And so part of investing more in law enforcement is being able to take care of these nuisance homes. I mean, we have so many drug homes, so many bike chop shops, and just various things like that all over Northeast Spokane. And neighbors have been dealing with these things for years, and the city just will not do anything. And so those are things that we are going to have to pay some really close attention to and actually follow what Title 10 in the SMs in our city code says, because it gives us the ability to take care of these issues.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to go to something very specific to your district. When completed, the North Spokane corridor will bisect your district. So please give us your insights into this and what the city is doing or could be doing to mitigate the impact on the neighborhoods and residents in your complete District 1. We'll start with you, Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, well, one thing I'm really excited about is the Ponderosa Pine opportunity, which I brought up actually in our last debate. And I think Larry Stone and the Lands Council are partnering really well together on this. It's a great philanthropy project for Larry, and it's going to enable him to plant a number of these Ponderosa pines along the freeway there to help create a sound barrier, as well as just beautify the area. And so I think that's really kind of a smart thing to do. They're really inexpensive. They don't require a lot of maintenance and upkeep. They kind of maintain themselves. And so we should really be looking at those sorts of items in other design standards as well, I think, around the city. But as far as the freeway goes, yeah, we're going to have to be very careful to make sure that we're not bisecting neighborhoods in a negative way. And I think so far the planning that I've seen, there's been a lot of emphasis on avoiding those sorts of issues. And so I'm actually thinking that it's going to look really well. It'll be really well done once it's completed.
Okay, Mr. Ben.
Yeah, I live in the Minnehaha neighborhood on the other side of the abyss is what we call it. And it's the North-South Freeway. We're all excited to have it done and quickly would be nice. This last year was a nightmare in Minnehaha getting in and out. While the Euclid corridor was closed, we had 3 to 5 accidents per day on side streets, semi-traffic traveling down residential streets. I'm the chair of Minnehaha Council. I had been approaching City Hall and City Council and the planners for 3 years, asking for them to do some fixes on roads. We had over 1,000 cars a day on a dirt road next to people's homes. They were covered in dust, literally all summer long this summer. There was a lack of planning, a huge lack of planning for the neighborhoods. The other thing I'm working on as a neighborhood council chair is that because of this huge piece of infrastructure, it'd be great when it's done. So I don't want to sound impatient because I don't want to get in the way at all, but we do need a plan around this piece of infrastructure. They've tore down all the homes, but the neighborhood council districts didn't change. So I'm working on getting the neighborhood council districts to move their boundaries so they make sense with the piece of infrastructure coming in the north-south corridor.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Let's go back to the traffic calming. I think, Mr. Ben, you mentioned the different amount of funds that your term was allocated to each of the districts. Is it an allocation, or are they not requesting the funds? And what more could we do to get the kinds of things you're seeing needed in District 1? We'll do Mr. Ben and then Mr. Cathcart. We'll take this one in about a minute.
So again, the traffic calming funds they're funds that come in from the speed light cameras and the school zone cameras. There's a lot of money being left on the table and being diverted is what I'm hearing is going to happen with the money if it's not used. Again, $450,000 in the Northwest District, $565,000 on the South Hill, and Northeast Spokane only got $45,000. There's a big problem with this program, and this program, it hinges on volunteers. And as a neighborhood leader, I've been told that we can't use this money to fix sidewalks. We can't use this money for this. We were told no on school safety lights for 6 years. That's a major piece of infrastructure to keep children safe, especially when the North-South Freeway is dumping off on Freya and the school is there on 2 main arterials. We need to solve this problem for the citizens. We need to broaden how the money can be spent in the district. And citizen volunteers are not planners. They're not engineers. The city needs to help these neighborhoods figure out what needs to be done and how they can use this money. And that's not currently happening in the Northeast District. We're ignored and we're told we can't. And Spokane needs to say we can.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, this is just another example of where Northeast Spokane is just being overlooked and ignored. I mean, to mention the dollars that we're not getting, and that's ridiculous. And if I were on the city council, people would hear from me on that. There's no way in hell I would allow that to take place in my district. And I think that's part of the problem. We need some people that are willing to stand up and fight for what is ours in Northeast Spokane. This is really important. I would actually take and I would broaden the program. I think we got to look for some additional funding, but I want to take those dollars and I'd put it into a bigger program that focuses on residential street maintenance. We need a 20-year residential street maintenance program. Every year we redo 5% of the streets, keep it up, make sure those streets are good, and that's really, really important. And part of that can be sidewalks, part of that can be traffic calming. But the point is we need a residential maintenance program, and this is a good source of funds to start, but we need to grow that pot. And so we're gonna have to look for some other sources as well, but this is gonna be really important if we're gonna see these positive investments being made in our community.
Okay, real quickly, I want to do a 60-second one here. And what do you like most about Spokane? What makes it special? And is there what would you change other than the things we've already talked about? Mr. Cathcart, 60 seconds.
You know, I just love how it's the old slogan that we don't use anymore, you know, near nature, near perfect. I think it's true then, it's true today. I really wish it was still our slogan. I think it makes the most sense for us. Anywhere in the city, you're pretty much 10 minutes from some sort of a natural area where you can hike and swim and just enjoy our natural wonders. You know, I think we've got some great, amazing, wonderful people, amazing business owners. You know, Northeast Spokane is just full of amazing small businesses. And I love every aspect of our community in that way. What I would change is I think we need a cheesecake factory. And so I would love to see us have a cheesecake factory move in. And if that happened in my term, I'd be pretty happy about that.
Okay, Mr. Ben.
Well, I happen to like cheesecake, but I'm not sure that's something city council can work on. But I do think that Spokane's a great place. I was born here, raised here. My wife and I got married in the district in Northeast Spokane. I've covered, I think, almost every street in the city on my bicycle growing up. And we have a wonderful city to explore, a wonderful region. It's not a large city where you feel like it takes all day to get across town. You're pretty close to where you need to be, but we're large enough that you have all the things. You know, we have a great healthcare presence. We have great services. So we have a lot of opportunities. And I think that I would start fixing government services, being more accessible to the people, where the people feel like they live in Spokane instead of Spokane, because we can do this. We can start solving some of these problems. We can fix streets. We just need to make it easier in the process for citizens to engage with city government. One of the things I'd like to see happen is a more welcoming city council, more testimony from citizens, and being inviting to hear their concerns.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to move to your 1-minute closing, and we'll start with you, Mr. Ben.
1-minute closing. I'm your Spokane City Council candidate for District 1. I know the district. I've lived in the district for decades. I've served the citizens there. I just want to keep on serving in a capacity that will bring more funds into the district. I want to fix some roads, especially the dirt roads, and I want to make sure our children are safe going to and from school. So please go to votetimben.com, Ben for Spokane on Facebook. Get involved in your community and help us out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, I'm Michael Cathcart, and I'm running for Spokane City Council because I think we have a culture in City Hall that just overlooks our Northeast City Council district. I think we need some common sense leadership. We need a change. We need to upend the status quo and really truly represent the people in our community. I'm really proud to have some really key endorsements. Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich, Commissioners Al French and Josh Kearns. Our Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, just endorsed me the other day, and I'm so appreciative to have their support and endorsement. But I'll tell you what, the endorsement and support that I am like more than happy to have are from folks like Bonnie in the Whitman neighborhood, who has drug houses nearby, and the city won't do anything about it. And so she has to live every day armed to make sure that folks that are coming through stealing things, dealing drugs, are not harming her. You know, I'm really excited to have people like Tiffany in Nevada Heights who are registering to vote for the very first time because they're just really excited about the message that we're sharing. And so I think we can do some great things. Please visit votecathcart.com. I would really, truly appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to our candidates for position 1 in District 1 for the City Council position. This concludes our primary election candidate for these candidates. They were Tim Benn and Michael Cathcart. And in case you joined us after the program began, here's a reminder about voting in the election. You must be registered to vote. You can register online by October 28th, up to 8 days prior to the election. Any mail-in or paper forms must be received in the elections office by October 28th. And this year, new same-day voter registration. During the 8 days prior to the election day, there will be 2 places where you may register in person: the Spokane County Elections Office and at Center Place in Spokane Valley. Hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4, and then 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. When you register, you will be provided a ballot for voting. Other voter registration changes are automatic voter registration when eligible citizens interact with state agencies, and a pre-registration process for our 16, 17-year-olds. Registered voters will receive their mail-in ballots about 3 weeks prior to Election Day. Ballots must be postmarked or deposited in conveniently located ballot boxes no later than 8 p.m. on Election Day. Ballots can be dropped off on Election Day at the voter service centers. For locations of ballot boxes or voter service centers, or information about accessing voting units or other questions about casting your ballot, contact the Spokane County Elections Office, 477-2320. Or find them on the web. Contact information for candidates as well as voter guides can also be found on the website of the Spokane County Elections Office. Additional election information can be found at the state website, votewa.gov, and on the League of Women Voters online voter guide at vote411.org. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area, thank you to all of the candidates for your participation in this forum, and thank you to our viewing audience for the willingness to learn more about these candidates and their issues. We hope that this forum has helped you in making an informed decision when you cast your ballot by Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. Thank you for joining us.